Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, fellow scholars, students, welcome to the online seminar series, Japanese Studies in Southeast Asia. My name is Deandra, and it is an honor to be your MC for today's session. This event is proudly presented by the Center for Japanese Studies and the Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Indonesia, with support from the Japan Foundation. This online seminar is held as a part of the International Japanese Studies Research Workshop and Symposium 2025, a program that is dedicated to exploring how studies with relation to Japan are practiced across Southeast Asia. This seminar series is held monthly and invites scholars from various universities in the region to share their research, perspectives, and insights. Our aim is to showcase the diverse trends, methodologies, and scholarly approaches shaping the Japanese studies in the Southeast Asian contexts. All the while, we also hope to nurture cross-border dialogue and strengthen academic collaboration among researchers, students, and institutions in the region. International Japanese Studies Research Workshop and Symposium 2025 consists of three main components: the ongoing research workshop held at the Center for Japanese Studies Universitas Indonesia since the beginning of July, this monthly online seminar series, and a symposium scheduled for October 21st to 22nd, 2025 at the Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Indonesia. Together, these events aim to foster regional academic engagement and promote the growth of Japanese studies in Southeast Asia. We are truly delighted to have you with us today, whether you're a scholar, a student, or simply passionate about Japanese studies. So, let's make the most of this opportunity to connect, learn, and grow together. Without further ado, let us begin today's session. Before we begin with today's presentations, let us first take a moment to get to know the institutions behind this event. We will now present a short profile video from the Center for Japanese Studies Universitas Indonesia, followed by an introduction to the Faculty of Humanities Universitas Indonesia, both of which are centers of academic innovation and two of the driving forces behind Japanese studies in Indonesia. Let us watch together.
Minasan konnichiwa. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Center for Japanese Studies, or in Indonesian, Pusat Studi Jepang at Universitas Indonesia. Since our founding in 1995, we have been committed to deepening the mutual understanding between Indonesia and Japan through research, academic exchange, and collaborative programs. Today, with a renewed vision, we focused on three main pillars: academic activities, cultural interactions, and community services. With this broader mission, we aim to foster not only academic connections between Indonesia and Japan, but also wider cultural exchanges with communities beyond by sharing our passion for Japanese studies. We warmly invite you to join us on this journey through meaningful collaboration and shared commitment to cross-cultural understanding. Let's work together to build a more connected future. 一緒に頑張りましょう。
Since its founding in 1995, PSDOE has played a significant role in strengthening academic and cultural cooperations between Indonesia and Japan. In late 2023, we are aligning our visions and missions to better reflect Universitas Indonesia goals and broaden our role in engaging with communities. Our vision is to be leading, professional, and independent research institution built on three core pillars: academics, cultural interactions, and community engagement. These three pillars are implemented through a variety of programs and events, organized directly by PSDOE or in collaborations with strategic partners. One of our flagship programs is Kutu Buku, a book discussion series that fosters critical engagement with Japan-related academic and cultural books. In the realms of cultural interactions, we organize YYJ Culture, an event that celebrates Japanese pop culture, and the Music and Culture Seminar, which explores intersections between Japanese and Indonesian musical traditions. We work closely with the Embassy of Japan in Indonesia to present the ambassadorial lecture featuring the Japanese ambassador as keynote speaker, and the Max Scholarship Seminar, which provides valuable information about studying in Japan. In collaboration with the Japan Foundation, we held the Japanese Studies Research Workshop and Seminar and the second International Conference of New Frontiers in Japanese Studies. Additionally, we also host one of the sessions of Japan Scope, a public lecture series on Japanese studies by the Japan Foundation's Jakarta. Together with the Japan Foundations and the Indonesian Associations for Japanese Studies, or ASTI, we also co-host the ASTI International Symposium and Seminar. With the Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA, and the Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Indonesia, we launched the modernizations of Japan Lecture Series, while our partnership with JASO allow us to serve a certified testing center for the examinations for Japanese university admissions for international students, or AJU. With Asia to Japan, we implement the fast-over Japanese language and career training program, supporting students' professional development for careers in Japan. And in collaboration with Tsuji Culinary School and Akamonkai Japanese Language School, we host the Japanese Business and Culture Seminar, which introduce practical insights into Japanese corporate and culinary culture. One of our greatest resources is the PSJUI Library, with the collections in Japanese, English, and Indonesian, including books, journals, and digital archives. Our library connects communities to world-class resources. These collections come from JICA, Japan Foundations, Toyo Keizai, Daido Life Foundation, the Jakarta Japan Club, the Red Japan Projects, and individuals donors. Our library is more than a space, it is a bridge between cultures. As part of our commitment to community engagement, PSJUI is making its facilities accessible not only to the university community, but also to the general public. These spaces are open for various academic, cultural, and collaborative activities, allowing more people to engage directly with our programs and resources. Thank you for your continued support. Together, let us strengthen our collaborations and build a future where academic and cultural ties between Indonesia and Japan grow ever deeper.
Universitas Indonesia is the best campus in Indonesia and one of the leading academic institutions in the world with the highest achievement in discovery, development, and diffusion of the humanities globally.
Sejalan dengan visi dan misi Universitas Indonesia, Fakultas Ilmu Pengetahuan Budaya Universitas Indonesia senantiasa menghasilkan manusia berkualitas yang memiliki kompetensi dan komitmen untuk kemajuan kebudayaan. FIBUI menjadikan kebudayaan sebagai investasi untuk membangun masa depan dan peradaban bangsa demi terwujudnya tujuan nasional sebagaimana diamanatkan Pancasila dan Undang-Undang Dasar 1945.
The faculty was originally named Fakultas Sastra or the Faculty of Letters Universitas Indonesia when it was established in 1940. In its development, the Faculty of Letters also studied cultural sciences and humanities. Thus, since 2002, its name was changed into Fakultas Ilmu Pengetahuan Budaya or the Faculty of Humanities or FIB for short, Universitas Indonesia. Academically, FIBUI also contribute to Universitas Indonesia's achievement in the 2023 QS World University Rankings by subject. In arts and humanities, FIBUI ranks first in Indonesia and fifth in Southeast Asia. Meanwhile, for modern languages, it ranks among the 200 highest institutions in the world. Similarly, in the 2024 Times Higher Education World University Rankings or the WAR by subject in humanities, FIBUI ranks first in Indonesia and ranks 401 from 500 in the world. FIBUI is also committed to making the campus environment free from corruption, collusion, and nepotism through the Universitas Indonesia Zone Integrity Award and achieving a green sustainable campus through the UI Green Metric World University Rankings. As an internationally leading educational and research institution under the 7 departments studying the humanities in FIBUI, we have study programs ranging from undergraduate programs, master's degree programs, and doctoral programs. The undergraduate program aims to prepare students to become intellectuals or scientists who are able to develop themselves into professionals. The objective of the master's degree program is to create competent scientists with the ability to develop and apply the humanities. The doctoral program aims to produce graduates capable of contributing to the development and application of knowledge, technology, art, and culture to solve national problems as well as advance human civilization. The graduate programs of FIBUI always become the best talent center with the teaching staff who have professional or competency certification as well as experience as practitioners.
Belajar di program studi Indonesia dan program studi sastra Jawa FIBUI membuat kami semakin memahami dan memiliki sudut pandang baru dalam kajian bahasa nasional dan daerah. Hal ini membuat kami selalu berusaha untuk melestarikan dan memperkenalkan khasanah budaya negara kita.
Dalam perkuliahan di program studi berbasis bahasa asing, kami tidak hanya mempelajari bahasa, sastra, sejarah, dan kebudayaan negara lain, tetapi juga menumbuhkan kepekaan dan kemampuan dalam mengkaji berbagai gejala budaya, sehingga akan membekali kami dalam melanjutkan langkah kami.
Saat ini, kepustakaan juga fokus pada kajian humaniora, digital humanities, dan big data analysis yang banyak dibutuhkan oleh perusahaan nasional maupun luar negeri. Sehingga kami mampu mengelola lembaga informasi berbasis teknologi informasi dan komunikasi dengan kreatif, inovatif, dan beretika.
Kami di sini belajar meneliti dan menelaah berbagai jenis data artefak dan historis dengan berpikir secara sistematis serta bekerja sama secara profesional. Namun, yang juga penting, kami tahu bagaimana cara mengkomunikasikan hasilnya kepada masyarakat.
Lingkungan di sini membentuk karakter kami untuk mengkaji permasalahan yang relevan dengan kebudayaan. Untuk kemudian ditemukan akar masalahnya sehingga dapat dihasilkan solusi melalui analisis dan argumentasi yang terstruktur secara sahih dan benar.
Sebagai mahasiswa program magister, kami dibentuk untuk selalu berpikir kritis, solutif, dan inovatif dalam menerapkan keilmuan yang dimiliki, sehingga mampu menyelesaikan masalah sosial budaya baik dalam konteks lokal maupun global.
Dalam program doktor, kami diarahkan untuk membuat produk keilmuan yang inovatif, original, dan teruji. Selain itu, juga mampu memecahkan masalah dalam bidang keilmuan melalui pendekatan interdisiplin, multidisiplin, atau transdisiplin.
FIBUI has implemented the Merdeka Belajar Kampus Merdeka or MBKM or the Freedom to Learn Independent Campus curriculum since 2020. Several MBKM programs for students are, among others, the Dikti Flagship MBKM program and various programs initiated by FIBUI with partners, such as internship programs at domestic and foreign partner institutions, internship programs in special work units and various service units at FIBUI, as well as lectures held in collaboration with partners from abroad. We emphasize on the development of human resources through the development of students' potential to enable them to become superior academicians in the humanities. We continue to improve our services and facilities to achieve world-class standards. As for facilities and infrastructure that are in line with the SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals, FIBUI has provided renewable energy to support Green Metric UI and SDGs through the use of carport solar panels, wider 5G Wi-Fi facilities, and the application of an electronic document and archives management system. In our daily activities, we foster an atmosphere based on simplicity, mobility, adaptive learning, reputation, and technology are smart to support all FEBUI programs in producing quality graduates with technical abilities, skills, and humanistic perspectives. To achieve FEBUI's vision, we have implemented 5 programs, namely curriculum development based on adaptive and innovative education, impactful research, good governance, collaboration with the industrial community and working world, and entrepreneurship to produce graduates capable of developing the creative industry. We also continue to establish national and international collaboration to carry out various programs such as the implementation of education, student and lecturer exchange, internship, collaborative research, and many other partnership programs. FEBUI has 2 business units working in the field of language and culture, namely Lembaga Bahasa Internasional or International Language Institution and Pusat Penelitian Kemasyarakatan dan Budaya or Community and Cultural Research Center. FEBUI students conduct many non-academic activities that foster creativity, competence, and skills to complement their abilities when they become full-fledged academicians and or professionals. This is proven by the fact that many FEBUI alumni have succeeded to contribute to their science, nation, and the world. Serving with knowledge, connecting the diversity, international recognition, advancing culture, and becoming a home for diversity.
Thank you. We hope the video gave you a clearer picture of the strong foundation and vision that support today's seminar. Now, let us move on to the core of our event. The online seminar series, Japanese Studies in Southeast Asia, where we will hear insights from distinguished scholars representing leading institutions in the region. In today's session, we are joined by Dr. Karl Chua from the University of the Philippines-Diliman and Dr. Sekar Puji Astuti from Universitas Hasanuddin. And now, to lead us through today's seminar, we are pleased to introduce our moderator, Dr. Himawan Pratama. Himawan Sensei, also known as Himi Sensei, is a lecturer at the Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Indonesia. Since 2023, he has been serving as the head of the Center for Japanese Studies at this same university. He is also an active member of the Indonesian Association for Japanese Studies, also known as ASTI. Himi Sensei obtained his PhD in Japan Studies from Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. His research interests include cultural representations of otherness in various Japanese contemporary media, spanning from popular cultural works, mass media, and narratives in sport. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Deandra. Am I audible? Okay. Thank you, Deandra, for the introduction. Minasan konnichiwa. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Himawan, and I will be your moderator for today's online seminar. Thank you very much for joining us. As mentioned earlier, this event is part of the International Japanese Studies Research Workshop and Seminar 2025, an initiative of the Center for Japanese Studies and the Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Indonesia. Our aim is to broaden networks in Japanese studies, particularly across Southeast Asia. We are also deeply grateful for the continuous and generous support from the Japan Foundation. So once again, thank you to our friends at the Japan Foundation. I believe Ina Misocho from the Japan Foundation Jakarta is here. So Ina Misocho, thank you for the continuous support provided by the Japan Foundation. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our first speaker, who will bring his presentation titled Navigating Linguistic Landscapes, Challenges in Japanese Studies in the Philippines. Dr. Karl Ian Ui Cheng Chua, whom I usually call Karl Sensei, is an assistant professor at the Asian Center, University of the Philippines-Diliman. His research focuses on historical and contemporary representations of foreigners in manga and comics. Karl Sensei earned his master's degree in Japanese studies from the National University of Singapore and his doctorate in social sciences from Hitotsubashi University, Japan. He currently serves as editor-in-chief of Social Science Diliman and is a member of the editorial board of the East Asian Journal of Popular Culture. In addition, he represents the Philippines on the steering committee of the Japanese Studies Association of Southeast Asia, or JSA ASEAN. He has frequently collaborated with Universitas Indonesia, including as a featured speaker at the Second International Conference on New Frontiers in Japanese Studies, held in 2024 with the support of the Japan Foundation. I believe we will all benefit greatly from his expertise and unique perspectives. Karl Sensei, the floor is yours.
First and foremost, I hope I'm audible. I'm currently speaking from my hometown because I came back for some other business with World War II. So anyway, first and foremost, I'm very grateful for the invitation. Indonesia has always been, particularly UI, has always been kind to me in recognizing my research, right? So the idea of what I want to show is it's an exercise that I have done considering my own experience and my own experience as someone that has grown in Japanese studies, but also someone that's teaching in Japanese studies in the Philippines. While the case study is the Philippines itself, I would like to invite the listeners and people who have came to also do some form of self-reflections within your own spaces. Just to give you particular biases, I had only began experimenting with Japanese studies in my master's period. In other words, I have never thought about doing Japan, nor have I even studied Japanese extensively until my master's in Singapore, which means that my acquisition of my knowledge and acquisition of language and Japan is actually quite in a later stage in my life. The other thing is, um, even with my own students itself, a lot of my students are coming from this similar space. And of course, my biases are, as you can see, I speak in English particularly, and since it's the main language that I use, although I'm also fluent in Chinese, Japanese, and Filipino. So where am I working with here? The dilemma that I'd like to sort of begin with is within Japanese studies, the first thing that I tend to now look at is, so what is Japanese language for? Within our own spaces, depending on which country you are, it usually begins with a hobby, especially in the 80s and 90s, with the popularity of popular culture, anime, manga, where people just wanted to learn Japanese or J-pop, right? Because they want to imbibe it within their own hobby. It was great that UI presented their video because it actually grounds everything that I am going to be talking about within my dilemma, right? The second way that we actually look at Japanese language is it's a skill-based learning. In other words, you use Japanese language particularly for employment. You need to upgrade your skills because most of the time you will be involved in employment that will require Japanese language, which we actually have extensively seen in the centers that UI has done so. And the last one is academic. That's supposed to be the space that I'm working with, wherein we are developing not only ourselves as Japanese studies scholars, but also we develop our students within this space. But how does this then work? One of the major problems that I then see in the Philippines, and this is me observing my partners in Southeast Asia, the Philippines has a difficulty engaging in early education for Japanese because of our very complex linguistic landscape. There are over 100 languages, 187 languages that exist in the Philippines itself. So if you think about it, it's almost the same landscape as Indonesia, right? However, and this is I'm not sure because I haven't studied Indonesia in the Indonesian context itself. But part of the problem that we will now have in the Philippines is with passing of Act 10.523, which is called the mother tongue-based multilingual education system. What it does is we have implemented a mother tongue-based education. We're not just looking at national language, which means we're not going to teach only probably Bahasa in Indonesia, but rather we will then work with the language of the space. So coming from Iloilo, mother tongue-based education means that I can now teach my students in Ilonggo, uh, or in Cebuano, or in Bisaya or wherever. So what happens is that you now have a very, very vast multilingual space. This creates a lot of complications, considering that you will now have to address learning materials that would then be geared towards this language. And I'm not saying that this is problematic, as in we shouldn't do it, but it now relates to a lot of particular dilemmas that are involved. For example, learning materials are usually in a bilingual concept. It's either textbooks that are done in English or textbooks that are done in the national language. But when you then evolve it into mother tongue-based education, it means that you then have to ensure that your learning materials would be able to translate itself to the mother tongue. And while we think this is just a translation problem, it actually becomes far more complex, right? Because you need to have appropriate terms for it. But rather than go through that entire process, which I've already spent so much time on, why am I working within this problem? Part of the problem here is when you then deal with second language learning, such as Japanese. When we are now going to teach Japanese within our own spaces, in what language will you then teach it in? Right? In a binary system where it's either in English or or national language, it's quite easy to transition, right? All you just need to do is to look for an English language textbook or a Japanese language textbook or a national language textbook, which you then are able to translate to your own students. But what becomes problem here is if you then work within a mother tongue based education system, it ends up that you have to retranslate terms, right? So that's one thing. So it's just a further complication, right? The other thing is, before this program started, Himi and I were already talking about, Filipinos are quite known to speak excellent English. And we will see here the proficiency rate. Within Southeast Asia, aside from, oh, sorry, I think it cut. Sorry. The highest country to have highest English proficiency is Singapore. Philippines is second. So what happens here? It creates um, it creates an issue of oh, sorry, I think someone. Anyway, it creates an issue regarding it creates an issue regarding language educational systems, right? I think we also have these types of issues in national-based education. Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore would be like, in what language should we teach our students? Should we put importance to English? If we do, should we put importance to mother tongue, to national language? And you further add mother tongue into this picture, right? So what then happens? It creates a confusion regarding curriculum development in terms of how many language classes will you then give, right? English is one, mother tongue is another, national language is another, and then you add to this picture second language, right? But why is this necessary? The thing is, as Indonesia, and that's why it's great that I'm talking here in UE, is that we have similar profiles. We are a labor migration sending country, right? Which means that part of the skills why we have acquired secondary language education is to ensure that our graduates and our students get employed. Um, and for the Philippines, we send massive amounts of massive number of labor migrant workers, which means that we're not only honing on their skills, but we are also honing on their language capacities to be able to work in these spaces. And that is why English has been a primary tool for employment in the Philippines. And that's why English had always been an important subject. So much so that we are able to teach or at least learn from the early stages of our life up to college English. But on the other hand, as a Japanese studies person, as a Japanese studies scholar, I'm also able to see how this affects Japan itself. The Philippines is a relatively large population in Japan, as you can see here. So much so that a lot of them are also not only working, are also working in this space. However, it creates a difficulty in the sense that not a lot of them are actually highly proficient within this concept, right? Indonesian numbers are also there. And if you look for this data, it's available online as well. You'll be able to see the breakdown of what type of employments these people go into. So what is my first point here? My first point here is looking at not only the issues regarding education, language education within the Philippines itself, but also the idea that our pedagogy had been focused primarily on employment, which means that we're basically looking at where are we going to send our students. Considering that despite the fact that Japan is actually a large labor migrant place for the Philippines, we don't actually emphasize Japanese language education simply because primarily we put importance to English. The next. So how do we then learn our language skills? Um, this is where I'm a little envious with the other Southeast Asian countries, particularly because their curriculum, I'm not sure about how they were able to plan their curriculums, but to some countries, they're able to actually input Japanese language education in early learners, right? Vietnam also does this. Indonesia has done this as well. I'm not sure about Malaysia, but why this is effective, why I think this is actually key is that despite the fact that it is an employment-based pedagogy, at the very least, by the time they reach advanced education, you already have students that have grounded skills. In other words, you're not starting from scratch. This creates a problem for the Philippines because while there are while there are a few schools that do early language intervention, particularly for Japanese, I'm also looking at what they are then teaching. One of the places that trains our teachers is, of course, Japan Foundation. In a recent visit to Surabaya, the tool for language education for them is Marugoto, right? If you the interesting thing here is its purpose. While there are advanced skills that are here, I have yet to, and please prove me wrong in this, I have yet to see a scholar that has grown from which means for me, it's the idea of this is a Japanese studies scholar that has only exclusively studied under Maragoto and has now extensively acquired language skills to be able to do research with Maragoto. What I've basically observed with a lot of language programs, particularly in Japan Foundation in the Philippines, is that it focuses primarily on Shokyu or basic language education. Why? This is essentially aligned to the initial point that I had because it is employment-based pedagogy. The first thing that these language schools or language programs would do is to ensure that that the Filipinos are able to have functional language skills. That's why the focus has always been on JFT Basic, Marugoto, where if you think about it, if you see the materials, you pretty much end up with basic language skills, operational language skills, right? And this is not bad. I'm not saying that this is wrong. This is just the space that we are functioning in the Philippines. So what does this do? It creates a large base of Japanese language teachers that are Shokyu level. Um, so what happens here? It then creates a tension or challenge in a sense that it creates a wall for students to actually advance themselves, considering that the teachers that are being trained are still in the basic to early intermediate level. And hence, in formal education, what you now have is people getting stuck, right? People getting stuck in this particular level if they're good at it, right? Or in some situations, if it's just going to be in the JFT basic, which is basically for employment, you just become shock you forever, right? The other place where you can acquire language skills, and this is where my experience comes in. You study in Japan. That's one of the most effective ways, and one of the generous scholarships that you can get is the Monkasho scholarship, right? Um, Indonesia has also generously received scholarships from here. However, what we also do realize with relying on the Japanese scholarship is that there is a limited number of students that can go, right? And within this limited number of students, there had been an unofficial preference towards the sciences. One of the reasons for this is because of how solid the training of the sciences are, as opposed to the social sciences and humanities in proposing. So what you end up with is a limited number uh, of humanities and social sciences scholars who will need to acquire language skills in order to do their research. It is a known fact that even the science programs themselves, would hardly encourage their students to learn the language, right? So what happens? You have now a further rarity of potential teachers who may acquire language skills itself, right? In most situations, social sciences and the social sciences would eventually send political scientists and international relations scholars because it's aligned to their own research, right? But unfortunately, with a lot of the material translated into English, they don't need language skills as well. So, where am I then working with here? given that these are our trainings, I'm now looking at how many people do then acquire language skills in the Philippines. These are the JLPT results based on the different testing sites from last year. And what you will see is that there are significant numbers of test takers. It's quite impressive if you look at the numbers itself, right? Uh, we will have about 1,000, around to 301 passers. And 5 and then 4 is quite the strength, which tells you also where the cabe, where the limitations of our language learners are, right? This is for July, this is for December, right? So, despite the celebration, because Japan Foundation also bases their numbers on this, right? Um, Especially for Indonesia, where they're quite impressed with the sheer number of JLPT test takers and users. But why am I then showing this and why am I then problematizing it? I'm problematizing it because if we assume that there is both employment and academic purposes for that language learning, why is it not translating to the field itself? In other words, why is there so limited? Why is there so little Japanese language teachers in the Philippines, or even Japanese studies scholars? It doesn't fit in terms of the people that are able to pass it and the people who then translate our to academia itself. I'm not saying that they should be in academia, but if you then look at these numbers, there's around 200 N1 passers in the Philippines. Yet it's a struggle for me in my department to look for look for not only scholars that are N1, but also teachers that are N1, right? So, I mean, the numbers are there, but it's also that issue. So what happens? There is a lack of language teachers in the intermediate or advanced levels, and it's because of the environment that we had. And as a sub point here, I'm also wanting to emphasize that a lot of particularly if you're dealing with Japanese studies, a lot of the language learners are adult learners. As what I've mentioned early on, students that after probably graduating from their undergrad, they have decided, I want to do area studies, I want to do Japan. And that means starting their language proficiency skills within a master's program. But if you look at the pedagogies that exist within the Philippine space, it's supposed to be developmental, right? You're supposed to start. It's similar to our how English is taught in non-English spaces. You start in kindergarten learning ABCs. You go to elementary where you then go to complex sentences and so on and so forth, right? That had been the logic of the pedagogies. But if you do that in a space where it's exclusively adult learners, you will eventually just have um, students who will graduate their masters with probably, if you're lucky, an N5 or an N4 level. Okay? And if these students do get employment, they would also translate their skills into language teachers, but it's also N5, N4. Right? So that's another point. The next thing I'd like to show is that, but it's not, I'm not blaming anyone and everyone here, right? When you look at the Philippine space, unlike Indonesia, which with each and every state, there probably like one Japanese studies or Japanese language program that exists. Within the Philippines itself, these are the only institutions that are related to Japan, right? My present university, the University of the Philippines, has two colleges that have it: the Asia Center, which is a master's program, and then the Department of Linguistics, which focuses primarily on an MA an undergrad in Japanese language, right? My former university, Ateneo de Manila University, a private university, only has a master's in Japanese studies and a minor in Japanese studies for the undergrad. Another private institution, De La Salle University, has a international studies program with a Japan-related course. And finally, you have the University of Santo Tomas, Asia's oldest university, which has an Asian Studies program for the undergrad and grad level. What becomes curious is that we actually have two Japan universities, Mindanao Kokusai Daigaku and Lapu-Lapu Cebu International College, which the second one, the Cebu College, actually focuses primarily on a pedagogy that's in Japanese language. And this is where it becomes interesting again for me, is that despite the fact that the two universities that you see here, Mindanao Kokusai Daigaku and International College, have high proficiencies. A lot of their students graduate JLPT and 1. We don't see their transition towards academia as well. So in other words, they're actually going into employment wherever they are. So, and the other problem that we have here then is that all of these institutions, with the exception of Mindanao Kokusai Daigaku and Cebu, are based in Manila. So think of it in a sense that the the center of Japanese studies in the Philippines is just still in the capital and the only institution. Unlike in Indonesia, unlike in Vietnam, where you have multiple institutions where you don't need to travel far, right, in order to study. Right? The other thing is, and this is where it was, when I saw the video, um, uh, urayamashi. Uh, I was jealous with what the support programs that Indonesia quite has, and I know Malaysia also has this. Like, there's actually a lot of local support from Japanese industries in order to develop or assist Japan-related programs. The only scholarship that I could find is the Nitori Philippine Scholarship Program, which does not exclusively support Japanese studies programs itself. So in other words, there, while a lot of our students eventually go to industry, part of the problem is that there is no support to the institution. Uh, so we end up with needing to start from scratch every time we graduate someone who does who has opted to go to industry as opposed to academia. And I can't blame them. I found this interesting feature right now in Google, where I look for the job descriptions in the Philippines, and it's quite surprising. Actually all of their salaries is far higher than mine, which is sad, right? But it's the reality that we also have even in Indonesia itself, right? Industry will always pay better. But what is fascinatingly curious about a lot of these, I just took some of them, is number one, unlike probably Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, rarely will a Japanese company in the Philippines directly hire Filipinos. I will try to look for an Aeon. I will try to look for a Uniqlo. I will try to look for a Muji that will do local hiring, which creates an impression to the students, or an aspiration for the students that I want to work for for a Japanese company. That does not exist in the Philippines. With these two things here, they are hidden uh, under an under a corporate HR. So we don't know what these companies are. And hence, it creates a little bit of a lot of Filipino within the space. Hence, relatively motivation for students to learn Japanese just because they want to be employed, right? The other thing here is that even the companies themselves recognize that the Philippines is a unique linguistic space where you don't need to push for the language proficiency. This hundred 10,000 peso salary job description, right? When you look at it, what is it open to? Open to Filipinos with N1, N2, pass or non-pass or JLPT non-required. So in other words, they also recognize that it's very difficult for them to hire Filipinos with Japanese language proficiencies. And if they do, they can, but it's also difficult itself, right? So what am I then working with here? My third point is there's a lack of academic programs, um, which means that if you want to have students that want to pursue an academic track, you also have to look for spaces that would hire them. And considering that there are limited number of institutions that it does not motivate students to actually pursue an academic track on its own. The other thing is the absence of support programs beyond Japan Foundation, right? And take note that Japan Foundation hardly gives scholarships. Not that I'm asking them to. This is where corporate CSR is supposed to come in, and it doesn't. The last point I'd like to end with is another different space within the Philippines itself. Why is there a limited number of Japanese proficient students within the Philippines or scholars? Is that aside from the nuances of Japan's Japanese studies, American or European track. There was a very distinguished scholar in my university, Josefa Saniel, who actually proposed the idea of the study of Japan, an ideology which means that you do not need to learn language, you do not need to learn Japan itself, but you are doing Japan studies if you relate to Japan. So, what does that mean? Within her proposal, which was a long time ago, you can do English literature in comparison to Murakami Haruki, and that's already considered Japanese studies or Japanese studies within their space. And this type of heritage has evolved in order to now create scholars who do international relations, bilateral relationships, multilateral relationships, which would basically just use English language material. Or as you can see from my previous slide, the Philippines has so many migration studies scholars. And what it does is it then relates towards studying not Japan as the subject, but the Filipinos in Japan. And it's the Filipinos in Japan in the absence of their interactions towards this space. Right? So what you end up with is like scholarship that's saying, oh, the Filipinos, we can't go to church, we can't eat the food that we like, and so on. But it tends to not look at the environment or the interactions with the others that are in that Japanese space. So this is what study of Japan does. And that is why when we then deal with the issue that is the Philippines, the linguistic landscape is not just a simple concept of asking Japan Foundation or someone to say we need to have better language classes. No, it's a far complex interconnection of so many issues that are existing. So much so that you're only able to solve particular problems by just chipping into the surface. I think that's about it for myself. Thank you for this. And if there are still more questions, I open for questions later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karl Sensei. Thank you for pointing out that the challenges faced by Japanese studies scholars is the language itself and how it is difficult to lure people to Japanese studies when we see it difficult to compete with industries. So I think we can dig it further in the question and answer session. For now, please let me introduce you to our second speaker, Dr. Meta Sekar Puji Astuti, or Meta Sensei. I believe Meta Sensei is already here with us. Yes, Meta Sensei, welcome. Meta Sensei will present on Indonesia and Japan, learning from the past, shaping the future. She is a faculty member in the Department of Japanese Literature, Faculty of Cultural Sciences, Universitas Hasanuddin, Makassar, Indonesia. She completed her undergraduate studies in Japanese literature at Universitas Gadjah Mada and earned a master's degree in Asian studies from Ohio University and received her PhD in Japanese studies from Keio University in Japan. She specializes in Japanese history and cultural studies. She served as head of the Department of Japanese Literature at Universitas Hasanuddin from 2019 to 2023 and has been actively involved in academic associations such as the Indonesian Association for Japanese Studies, or ASJI. In addition, she coordinates initiatives such as Japan Corner at Universitas Hasanuddin, which foster cross-cultural understanding and academic collaboration. Her research explores the intersections of Japanese literature, history, and cultural exchange, particularly Japan-Indonesia relations. She has published scholarly articles and book chapters on Japanese cultural identity, literature on historical perspectives, and also serves as a reviewer for NAWA, Journal of Japanese Studies. We look forward to learning from her expertise and perspectives on this important topic. Meta Sensei, the floor is yours. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Thank you so much, Himi Sensei, and I'm very grateful for this invitation. And yes, that Dr. Karl mentioned that the Indonesian people has the lower lower English proficiency. So I'm sorry for my English then if I have a mistake. Anyway, so can I do for the share?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm sure you can do it.
Okay, and then I will check about the because I will. Okay, wait a second. I will share also about for the sound. So yeah, maybe if I cannot, if the sound cannot be here, so I will go to. Oh, can you see my?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
We're seeing your
Is that
yeah,
okay?
now. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Clear. Thank you.
So yeah. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And today I will go for the historical perspective about Indonesia and Japan. And my title today is Indonesia and Japan, Learning from the Past, Shaping the Future. So I will go for the how to say, how we can see the historical perspective on Indonesia and Japan historical relations, and maybe this kind of my 2 cents of idea maybe can be an idea for how we can make the next future of Indonesia and Japan relations. So my subtitle is The Evolving Dynamics of Commodities and Worker Exchange. And yeah, Mark Twain, one of the great American writer, he says that history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So I will go for the keyword is rhymes. And the Margaret Macmillan also she believes that the rhyme of history, one of we can learn something else. So if we can see past our blinders And wait a second. If we can see past our blindness and take a note, wait a second. I will, sorry. Okay, if we can see past our blindness and take note of the telling parallels between then and now, the ways in which our world resembles that of 100 years ago, history does give us valuable warnings. So there is a rhyme of history. So I will go for the rhymes. Maybe it's very far away. It's about 400 years, for centuries. But maybe we can see the dot. There is what is that? The history can make our future. So yeah, there is a theory of quadrative long wave cycles that he is a Syrian from Russia, and he has a theory about the long wave cycles for about a century. And Ray Dalio also used these long wave cycles for his theory about the changing world order. And yeah, the long wave theory usually used for the economic marketing, something like that, but also can be used for the social history. And I will show you about a little bit evidence about the propaganda film produced by Nippon Eigasha for Romusha recruitment. And this archive belong to Netherlands Institute for Beeld and Geluid, or Netherlands Institute for Sound and Visual. So allow me to share the video for about 3.5 minutes.
Ibu Meta, I think you need to also share the sound. Ibu Meta.
Okay, can you hear the sound?
No. Can
Oh,
you
okay.
reshare your
Okay.
screen and then also click the sound share button as well.
Okay, wait a second. Or maybe I can you can change the, I don't know how to.
Oh, do you need us to play the video for
Yes.
you?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Alia, can you please help? Okay, our operator will do it for you.
Oh, bukan ada. Gimana?
Peperangan sekarang yang sehebat-hebatnya yang dilakukan oleh bala tentara ini pun sehingga putra-putranya, prajurit-prajuritnya mengusir dan menempur dan menerjang musuh. Kita yang di belakang garis peperangan harus insaf dan mempersatukan tenaga kita untuk bekerja sekuat-kuatnya dalam segala lapangan dengan gembira untuk meruntuhkan musuh yang jahanam, Inggris dan Amerika.
Pekerjaan yang penting itu dibutuhkan tenaga pekerja yang besar. Romo Kyukai di tiap-tiap kota saban hari hibuk mengerahkan segenap tenaga pekerja untuk dapat memenuhi kebutuhan itu. Yang diurus ialah mengumpulkan dan mengirimkan tenaga pekerja ke tempat-tempat yang membutuhkannya. Dalam film ini terlihat satu kantor yang baru saja menerima perintah untuk mengumpulkan tenaga pekerja yang banyak. Tenaga-tenaga ini harus dikerjakan secepat-cepatnya. Oleh karena itu, pegawai-pegawai kantor tersebut dengan segera memberitahukan perintah itu kepada kantor-kantor Ken. Kantor-kantor ini lalu meneruskan perintah itu kepada kantor-kantor Gun, dan selanjutnya perintah itu diteruskan kepada para Sonco dan Puco. Kepada penduduk, senantiasa diberikan nasihat dan keterangan tentang perlunya mengumpulkan tenaga pekerja sebanyak-banyaknya untuk pembangunan Asia baru. Usaha itu berarti pula suatu sumbangan yang besar bagi penduduk seluruh Asia yang selalu menjadi idam-idaman 1000 juta rakyat Asia. Sekarang kita diberi kesempatan untuk ikut serta dalam melaksanakan cita-cita yang mulia itu. Marilah kita menyumbangkan tenaga kita dengan hati rela dan gembira.
Okay, thank you so much. I will share about my, okay, where is it? Wait a second. Okay. So yeah, I'm sorry for Karl because this is in Bahasa Indonesia, but it's about the Romusha recruitment in during Japanese military occupation on that day. It's about 1944. And yeah, this is remind me for about the worker exchange since centuries ago and also today. Maybe it's, of course, this is a very different, this is the change about the history, but there is something similarity that today many of the how to say the job, how do the people in Indonesia, the young people in Indonesia can go to Japan for working, and also they can do for jishusei and also got the visa of Tokutegino, and Japan really I think there is how to say Japan also have many the worker. So the last video is actually the title of the video is pekerja, is worker. Yeah, and this is today in our Indonesia. We can see many flyer about the locker or the working occupancy in Japan. And also the government also has a really good relation with Japan and said that there are Indonesian migrants can go for Japan and especially the specified skilled worker or SSW or Tokutegino, and it's there are open for 800,000 slots for foreign talent between 2024 2029. Okay, this is what happened today. And I think I will go for the archival evidence, the continuity in motion. So I will show you about Japanese bedinde or slaves in Dejima. And this sketch is made by Shiba Kokang, one of the reputable painter in Japan. When he went to Nagasaki for a journey, and he noticed there are Swarte Yonga, the Kurombo, or a small the black people over there, and there are no many information about them, but they are working in Dejima on that time. And also we can see from the art history in Japan, we can also find the Jakarta Jimbutsu and also Malati, who is working for Titia Bersma, the wife of Blomhoff, the captain of Dejima, and also who is working for one of the what is I'm sorry, I forgot his name. And yeah, and Ryutori Shimada also said that the private slaves under VOC employees is quite a lot, and they are mostly came from the Indonesian archipelago, and we can see from the National Archive of the Netherlands, and also the Dejima Dark Register also mentioned about them. And this is one of most very realistic person. His name is Orson, and the lady, her name is Malati, and Wolfgang Michel, Professor Wolfgang Michel from Kyushu University, he compiled of the Indonesian servant's name, and Malati is the only female servant, and we can see a name that in the beginning they gave name with the Dutch name, but in the last part of the Dejima, there are names that Baju, Striman, Drono, Otong, Dul, Idam, Kajiman is very Indonesian name until this until now. And we move for the commodity flows. So how about the commodity? The commodity is actually also there is how to say, the Japanese commodity in Indonesia is actually starting for about 1914, which is triggered by the World War I. And on that time, we can see that the Japanese pavilion in Semarang. So today there is an Indonesian pavilion in Osaka, but in that time, the Japanese pavilion has a really great participants, and it has 240 participants from the private and also governmental participant. So the World War is actually one of the most important timing for the Japanese commodities in Indonesia. because since the World War, so the European shipping cannot go to the Netherlands East Indies. So the Japanese commodities became essential substitutes. So Professor Shimizu told that the Japan-Netherlands East Indies trade relationship evolved into a colonial type arrangement because the industrial nation supplies manufactured goods to developing regions in exchange for raw materials. So we can see the statistic of the industrial goods rose almost 50%. And also the Japanese commodities also advertised in many newspaper in Indonesia, local newspaper. This one is in Borneo, Kalimantan. This one is Bintang Timur. I do believe in Parada Harahap there. Maybe it's Padang. So we can see some Japanese commodities was advertised on that time also. And then Mokondo is actually the Javanese newspaper. And Utusan India, one of the nationalistic newspaper. Kaum Muda also. And yeah, this is one of my research team, Jintan. Many of Jintan's advertisement on Kaum Muda. And also Sipa Tahunan is a Sundanese newspaper on that time. And yeah, this one is the Morishita Jintan's advertisement in Javanese. So it's kind of polyglots advertisement on at the moment. And yeah, and this one is the mosquito coils. And I do believe that Dr. Karl very familiar about the name of Kato, but actually Kato means a brand on that time. It's owned by Azumi. And yeah, in Indonesia on that time, Katol has a very unique brand because they are using the animal brand symbols. There are chicken, there are lion, and also babi hutan or the boar. Yeah, and in 1915, there is the mosquito repellents. The brand is Selamat Tidur, also owned by Azumi. And now there is a Fumakila with the name of Ape, and it has elephant. And I don't know, Selamat Tidur, they don't have any animal on that one. Yeah. So another commodity, we also know that many of candies produced by Japanese product like milk caramel, and still Morinaga milk caramel still there. So if you go to convenience store, we can find the milk caramel also. And Haichu, they have halal lines in Indonesia. And yeah, Tansang, Tansang in Tagalog also become the Tagalog's word, become the the cap of the battle. And we can see Tansang from Clifford Wilkinson also we can find in Indonesia. And we see the lemon water, and also you see 1000 is very popular in Indonesia. And yeah, this one is Surabaya, the center of Japanese trade in the Netherlands East Indies. So the Toko Chiyoda is very big Japanese department store on that time, and located in Tunjungan, Surabaya, the heart of Surabaya city. And also there is Sakura Beer. It's also poster in Surabaya. And I found that in 1933, there is an article written by Frank Dima, and he said that, yeah, we drink tea with Japanese cookies served in Japanese tableware. The baby is wrapped in Japanese clothes, and I have a fake Japanese tooth. I pour my guest Japanese beer, naturally from inexpensive Japanese glasses. We write letters on Japanese paper and have chrysanthemums in Japanese vases. And on our inexpensive Japanese gramophone, the Dutch anthem sounds just as beautiful. Oh, all these things cost hardly a penny. And then you quickly forget that you are Dutch. And he concludes, my neighbor plays a Japanese sitar. My gardener uses a Japanese watering can. My boy wears Japanese slippers. My boy wears those Japanese slippers. My wife wears a kimono like a real geisha. My mother-in-law wears a yellow Japanese pajama. My nanny also wears a Japanese sarong. My house looks like a Japanese warung or a small shop. But still, you declare that you are Dutch because such a declaration doesn't cost you a penny. And yeah, and also it happens in Indonesia until right now. I just go through the Gaikindo statistical data, and we can see that the Japanese brands, especially for the cars, almost 90% of Japanese car is still dominant in Indonesia. Especially, yeah, we know that Toyota is almost 33% dominant in Indonesia. And yeah, so this is the flow about the commodity. So the early cultural exchange through maritime trade, we know that the VOC also doing the trading about the ceramics from Japan to Dutch East Indies and also to the Netherlands. And we know that the World War I create Japanese market penetration, so we can see that Morinaga, Tansan, Jintan, Azumi, etc. is very common for advertisement. So in 1930s, there is total lifestyle integration. You quickly forget you are Dutch because your commodities are Japanese. So yeah, 1942 and 1945, trading control by military government, and we should know the history of Japanese automobile dominant marketing in Mallory incident in happening in Jakarta. And then after that, Japanese electricity and also the automotive also bikes still dominant until now. And Japanese pop culture also, the penetration still happening at this moment. So yeah, as I saw you that the market leadership, Toyota is still the leader and also Honda. And how about the worker? So from my observation, since maybe 250 years ago, there were Indonesian workers in Japan, in Dejima also, and the Dejima record shows that 25% workers is from Indonesian archipelago. And then the abolishment policy of the slavery, so it stopped. And then we just saw the how the Romusha forced labor system for the propaganda. And then it changed. So in 1990 until about 1 decades, there is an internship worker structure, and also there is a change 2008 and maybe around 2017 IJPA MUU for on nurse and caregiver, and then the most recently the Tokutegi no policy started by Japanese government, and then yeah, the Road to Japan programs is still happening at this moment. So yeah, there is a 6 waves of future transformation. So what is the next? The conclusion. So there is the rhythm of bilateral relationship. So yeah, there are consistent themes across different historical contexts and evolving manifestation of Indonesian economic complementarity, and the relation foundation that survive political and technological disruption. So I will conclude this presentation. As Mark Twain observed, history doesn't repeat exactly, but the underlying rhythms of geographic proximity, economic complementarity, and cultural adaptability continue to shape Indonesia-Japan relations across centuries. The past doesn't repeat, but the rhythms of economic complementarity continue to shape our shared future. Okay, I think that's it, my presentation, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ibu Meta Sensei, for sharing your insights on the continuity and change within Japan-Indonesia relationship throughout history, as seen in worker exchanges and community flows. We will now enter the question and answer session. And we invite all of the participants to actively involve in the discussions. So if you have any questions or comments for both of our speakers, please use the raise hand button, or you can also write your questions or comments on the chat box. Okay, anyone, please. Okay, we have one, Anggita Putri is raising her hand, I suppose. Anggita, yes, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, good afternoon for Karl Sensei and for Meta Sensei. I really enjoy your lectures. It was very informative and it gave me new perspectives about Japanese studies in various lenses. What I am currently curious about regarding Japanese studies and its, its position in Indonesia or in the Philippines. Does Japanese studies or Japanese language studies in particular has reached a certain urgency where Indonesians or Filipinos has to have the Japanese studies or Japanese language skills in order to survive in international or domestic labor market? Because now worldwide, from what I have seen in the news or social medias, there are so many requirements and labor markets has been increasingly very competitive. So is having Japanese language or Japanese studies knowledge a strategic move for young people to survive in the labor market and secure the good position for them in the long-term career field in academic or in industrial field? Thank you.
Thank you, Gita. I think her question relates directly to what Carl Sensei have discussed about. So Carl Sensei, if you want to address her question, and Bumeta, you can also add.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Yes, on my end, no. Actually, what I want to present here is that it really depends on your space. For example, at least in the Philippines, we're able to get we are able to get employed both in academic and in corporate without any language skills whatsoever. But it doesn't mean that we should stay as is, right? In Indonesia, probably it's a very different thing. However, it would be good to develop skills looking at future needs. An example that I can give, I'm not sure if Yati Sensei is still here. Yati Sensei actually has a very excellent research on, it's a database on Malaysians that are doing research on Japan. And what she was able to see in her research is that there are more people contributing to Japanese studies that are not in Japanese studies. So, so it becomes this very interesting knowledge concept. But it can also be interesting to look at it from an employment idea as well. How many people are actually being hired by Japanese companies, and who are being hired by our universities. And by doing so, we can also strategize in terms of how to develop our students and ourselves better. But thank you for the question.
Thank you, Karl
Thank you for the answer, Karl
Meta
Sensei.
Sensei, would you like to
Yeah.
add something?
Okay, I will add a little bit. Yeah, I agree with Dr. Karl, and yeah, it's actually is kind of a tricky for young people in Indonesia. It should be very good in Japanese or not, because I just went to one of university in somewhere else in Jakarta, and the university a little bit confused about the translation how to say the translation mata kuliah, what is it, the course of the translation, because some part of the translation job can be replaced by AI. So it's kind of, I do agree with the strategy, and also we should think about that. And there is no big data about the migrant worker in Indonesia already yet. So this is our homework, and we should go for it, because it's still happening. So, until when the demand is still for the worker. So we should notice, and we should observe about that. And yeah, I think it's 50-50, maybe yes, maybe not. But the Japanese culture is actually, I think, is very important to understand for worker who will go to Japan. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Meta Sensei. I believe Rohayati Paidi Sensei is also here with us. Yati Sensei, if you want to add something, please feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, Gita. Okay, we will move on to the next question. I think Muhammad Rafi is raising his hand. Rafi, can you unmute yourself?
Okay. Thank you, Meta Sensei and Karl Sensei.
Rafi, I think you're still muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Boleh ya?
Okay.
Okay. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Rafi. I came from the University of Hasanuddin, Makassar. I'm a new student entering this year on 2025. And my question is, I would like to ask my question in Japanese, if can. So, では、先生には、メタ先生に、また先生としてはどう思って、今のマテリアルとか、僕が聞いた話だけど、日本は、国際戦争の、世界戦争の時に、インドネシアに、they colonialized the Indonesian nation. So after the Japanese people left Indonesia, have there been, or is there any positive outcome, or is there anything that the Japanese has left us that helped Indonesia in terms of their growth? Well, will it be the economy or their nation, their facilitation, or anything that really helps out Indonesia in a way that the Japanese colonialization not only a negative side effect, but also adds a positive towards the growth of Indonesia as a nation in a very early stage. That's my question.
Thank you, Rafi.
Is it clear?
Yeah, I think the question is directed.
Okay. So I will answer the question. Maybe not really deep, but I hope that we help you. Well, the World War II, I think was you have a research about the World War II, right? So during the World War II is actually the crisis period of the world. So yeah, the Japanese military government also has many problem because they're kind of they have a short and anything. So they didn't have anything on that time. So I think they didn't left something for the prosperity of Indonesia, but and also I know there are there are journal talking about the corruption during the government military occupation. And also, yeah, this very bad situation on that time. So it is also the bad situation Indonesia, Indonesian history at the time. So my answer is yes, the facility we didn't there are no facility improvement on that time because we are very has a dark period on the time. But the Japanese occupation military government on that time give some legacy for Indonesian culture, such as the education system in Indonesia. So we still use it until right now. And also RT/RW, how to say RT/RW in English, the how to say the kampung system in Indonesia is came from Japanese military occupation, and also some of the idea of how we go for the Asia Raya or the greatest Asia. So yeah, we have to see the good point of the Japanese military occupation. Yes, we know that it was one of the darkest the Indonesian history on that time, but we have many things that there are lights from the military occupation. Yeah, that that I only can share with you. Maybe Carl, I don't know if this answer your question or not. Yeah, go ahead, Carl, if you have any addition comments.
Great, thank you. Actually, very excellent question. However, we have to look at it. This is basically a history question where we have to move away from the paradigm of black and white, where we think of Japan, like we think of the Dutch as an enemy, we think of the Japanese as an enemy. Same thing in the Philippines, where Spain is an enemy, American is the enemy, Japan is the enemy, right? Why? We have to move away from it because we we are currently living in a history where we cannot remove colonial experience from our history. In other words, it's already there. There has been in history a move towards ethno-nationalism. In other words, we're imagining a perfect history for ourselves, like Filipinos that only had Philippine history, Indonesia, which has Indonesian history. But there's also the criticism of Jawa history only, right? Or Manila history only. So then the next stage here is what Meta Sensei has mentioned. Um, what has how have we been shaped by our colonial experience? We don't have to say it's good, we don't have to say it's bad, but it's there, right? Meta Sensei has mentioned that in Indonesia, it's surprising for me that it's education that has actually the educational system has actually been part and left within Indonesia itself. Because in the Philippines, it's the Americans, it's the US.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah. So it's the idea of, okay, so how has it done? What are we still doing? And that's where we're able to study it. So hopefully we can move into that perspective as opposed to just looking at it from like, oh, it's positive, oh, it's negative. Because eventually who we are is what has happened in the past. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Karl.
Thank you, Meta Sensei, Karl Sensei. Rafi, I hope that answers your question. We also have Aldri Sensei raising his hand. Aldri Sensei, can you unmute yourself?
Hello, thank you, Himi Sensei, and hello again, Karl, and hello, Bu Meta. I'm Aldri, you know Mila. So I have a question about the colonial consciousness and the response, because I think the point from both of your presentation is that we have that colonial consciousness and we respond with Japanese studies that we reform in today's time. So my question is to Karl. So what kind of trend that you have in Japanese studies in the Philippines regarding the, that power relation between Japan and the Philippines, for example, the migrants, the Philippine migrants in Japan, etc. And for Bu Meta, that was a really insightful presentation. And this question is merely a curiosity with your amazing works and picking up the primary data for your historical analysis. So I want to know the process of how do you pick up the data and what kind of struggles that you have of being Indonesian. And it's not I don't mean to be discriminative, but you live in Makassar. And I think the access to the documents is harder than us who live in Jakarta, for example. So I want to know the whole process and how do you get inspired with that? Thank you.
Thank you, Aldri. Karl Sensei, if you want to start.
Great, thank you. Thank you for actually bringing that up. I didn't, I wasn't conscious about the colonial aspect until you brought that up, that sort of connected me and Meta Sensei together. All right, so how are we going to move forward within this space, considering that we have a colonial experience in Japanese studies? What is important then is our positionality. What do we mean by this? We cannot forget our Southeast Asian, our Indonesian, our Filipino positionality, which includes our colonial experience and history. In other words, exactly what Meta Sensei has done. You are going to be looking at Japanese history, but you are also looking at it from the experience of the Southeast Asian, in her case, Indonesian. And not only that, she was also including the colonial experience of the Dutch, right? So, and why? Because by doing so, by insisting on it, we're then able to generate a very different idea from, let's say, a Dutch scholar that's going to be studying about World War II, right? And an American scholar that does the same thing, right? Furthermore, and it's great that you also mentioned, Audrey, that Meta Sensei is from Makassar.
Hello, Karl Sensei.
Karl is freezing.
Okay, I think he's having difficulties in his network. Okay,
My bad.
while
Sorry, sorry about that. Sorry about that. One of the important things as well is what when Aldri mentioned about Meta Sensei from Makassar, right? And then the conversation is like, oh, what you study in Indonesia is just Jawa history. Why don't we have another thing about other places, right? So that also creates a very different positionality, right? To give you a clear, concrete concept, we're not just going to look at it from the space of just Indonesia or the Philippines itself. Remember that we are currently commemorating the dropping of the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki recently, right? And what happens is if we forget our positionality, we get immersed in the space of, and we're not supposed to criticize it, right? We get immersed in the space of, oh, it's so sad that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were victims of the atomic bomb, which is true. That's a fact. The problem here is that by doing so, we also forget that part of the reason this existed was the suffering that Southeast Asians had in World War II itself. So, in other words, we have to ensure that both perspectives exist. We cannot forget our own experience, but at the same time, we cannot delegitimize the experiences of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And that's where the decolonial experience comes in. Sorry about me, but there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karl Sese. Bu Meta, if you want to
Okay.
add something.
Well, you remind me about my struggling during these days. Okay, anyway, yeah. This is for your information. I was not really historian. I think in 20 years ago, I'm not really historian. But since my book was published as published to the world, and then I feel like I'm historian at that moment. And then I have like a pause moment because I was so struggling when I was writing the book, because the book is actually my undergrad thesis actually, and I finish it, and then one of the small, not small really, not really small, but the historian publisher in Jogja published my this what is that, the thesis. And then when I went to Japan, and my supervisor is one of the big name of the Japan-Indonesia relations, Taiko Kurosawa Sensei. And yeah, he mentioned in his very newest book that historian can be maybe two. Is it because their hard work, or because of the fortunate to find the documents? And then he said that you should go to the Netherlands, because the Indonesian documents is most only in the Netherlands. Maybe it's different with Karl, because I think you're supposed to go to the United States or somewhere else, or in Japan. So yeah, the first time I went to the Netherlands, I went to the National Archive in the Hague, and I was so because I haven't seen the most very documents, and in if you smell it, you can feel it. It came from 100 years ago or something like that. You can smell it, the aura of the oldest. So on that time, she said to me that you have to go to the Netherlands, because the primary sources is in the Netherlands. So yeah, during my difficulty times, I went to the Netherlands, and then I went to the National Archive, and also the National Library in the Netherlands. And then it was amazed me, because Netherlands has a really good on documentation on that time. And then I was lucky because I have one not really thick one, but a small one, but it became my sources of my dissertation. So yeah, I was lucky on that time. And then when I got my PhD stuff, and then I don't know, I just go for the documentation, and also actually I also learned the Dutch language when I was before I went to United States. And then in United States I met the late of William Frederick, and then he told me that you have to learn the Dutch. And then I took his courses about the Dutch, 2 courses on the time. So at least I know the keywords about the Dutch. And thankfully for the human, what is that? The AI, the human digitalities. So that's why the Dutch is they have a really many documents that already digitalized. Even for the newspapers, so you can find it. And also actually the National Library in Indonesia, I was lucky on that time because they were data on that time, but stuck in this time. And also the Japanese one, if we know the keywords, we can find something. So this is lucky or I just crazy, I don't know. Sometimes I was like, why I have to go to 4 centuries ago? So yeah, maybe sometimes I lucky because the Netherlands has a really good digitalized documents, and also the photography and the painting, something like that. And then in 2019, I was lucky because I get the research funding from Sumitomo Foundation about the Kawahara Keiga. So some of the painting was wrote by Kawahara Keiga. So on the time, and then I was going for more deeper, and then I found something. Okay, so yeah, just find it in the Dutch, because the old Dutch also different with because now they use Japanse, but on the old time they use C. So why they delete the extra C, because for the efficiency budget. So yeah, efficiency budget also also happening on the few centuries ago. So yeah, that's my story. I don't know is it answer your question or not, but yeah, I know this is kind of craziness, the history and stuff, because almost every night I just going for the looking something crazy in the from the computer. So there is no connection between the Jakarta and Makassar, because I think I know the knowledge. So that's the important thing. So you can have the AI from the part of the world, but the knowledge is different. I think. Sorry, I think so. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Bu Meta. Thank you, Alessandra, for the question. I think in the chat box we still have one question raised by Shifa. I will read it as it is. Hello, Karl Sensei and Meta Sensei. Thank you for your presentation. I'm Shifa, alumni of Japanese Studies in Bachelor Program, Universitas Indonesia. I'm curious how the Philippines or other ASEAN countries think image about teacher or tutor as occupation, especially in Japanese studies field. I've experienced several years teaching Japanese for students who will work in Japan as engineer and jishusei. I do truly wish I could back to academia field. However, I worry a lot of things, especially on welfare side. In Indonesia, using JLPT N3 or N2 certification, if we apply at LPK, Otoritas Kikang, this is the Ginoji Shise sending organization. We got a regional minimum wage or might be lower than that, and often case employer won't pay for insurance. However, if we work at Japanese company, we able to get not only higher salary, but also health and employment insurance, and it feels safe to live. Okay, this is between reality and idealism. So how can we make sure that those who wants to pursue to the academia will survive? What's your take on this, Karl Sensei and Meta Sensei?
Great, thank you. Thank you for the very realistic, real question. I'm not saying that the others are not, but I think this is an important thing we have to talk about. Is number one, we have to also realize that academia does not pay well. But we do it because, not as you can see from Meta Sensei's conversation, if you are happy just doing it, then go ahead. right? There are some people that they love, like same with Meta Sensei. I go to an archive, I just keep on reading material. I'm happy already. However, what we do not see is the number of support that we can get from other places beyond our salary. Meta Sensei has mentioned about Sumitomo Foundation. There are a lot of these research grants that allow us to not only do research, which we get support from, but also travel. So those are different things that you cannot find in like a corporate job. I am not saying that a corporate job is wrong, right? There are some students and there are some people that realize the realities. If you're practical, then go ahead. We cannot stop people from doing that. However, it's great that you also mentioned this. There are some students and there are some people that don't realize how much their value is. In other words, they are very underpaid. Um, we have to also change that perspective in terms of need. For example, I don't do this as a job, but I have some occasional baito where in Saiban they ask me to be interpreter, and I insist on charging high. Why? Because higher than any interpreter. Why? Because I add into my knowledge, not only my linguistic knowledge, but also my grounding, both in Philippines and in Japan. Right. So you have to also value yourself, that even if the rate right now is this, if you are a grad student, if you're a PhD student, there is much something that you can add to yourself. So, there is no single path to this. It really depends on what you want to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Karl Sensei. Ibu Meta, if you want
Yeah.
to add
I will
something.
add just a little bit. There is statistic research that the Indonesian lecturers' salary is the lowest salary in Southeast Asia. So, Carl, you better than us. The basic salary you have a better than us. So yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of question that we should be a teacher, we should be whatever, and the minimum wage is something like that. Yeah. Well, not just because the happiness, but I think we have to find our value, forget the worst thing or the better thing. It's because we have value, something like that. Yeah, I do really agree about that. And yeah, it's very tough question actually. This is a realistic one. I do understand. Yeah. So, and also, but if you have a better salary than mine, Carl, but sometimes I go to another places for doing not side jobs, but is the task from the government, something like that. So yeah, sometimes we have pocket money from the other side of the world. So yeah, that's all. So you have to find your value once for your wages, something like that. Okay. Maybe Himi Sensei have another perspective.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Meta and Carson. I think if I conclude the answers from Carl Sensei and Meta Sensei, we can safely say that being in the academia will gives us also a flexibility to be in places, not only in the campus, but also other places. Okay, so but sorry, due to the limitation of time, I will have to conclude the session here. Once again, please everyone join me in giving a big round of applause to our speakers, Carl Sensei and Meta Sensei. Now I will hand the program back to our MC, Diandra.
As we come to the end of today's session, we would now like to move on to the closing remarks. But before that, we kindly invite all participants to join us for a group photo if your camera is available and you're comfortable turning it on. We will start taking the group photo. For the first slide, please follow my lead. 1, 2, 3. For the second slide, please follow my lead. 1, 2, 3. The third, 1, 2, 3. Thank you for your participation in the group photo. Let us now proceed to the closing remarks, which will be delivered by our moderator for today, Yumi Sensei. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you again, Diandra. Am I audible? Okay. Once again, I'd like to thank our speakers, Dr. Karl Ian Ui Cheng Chua, Karl Sensei, from the University of the Philippines-Diliman, and Dr. Meta Sekar Puji Astuti from Universitas Hasanuddin for sharing their insights on Japanese studies in the Philippines and Indonesia. On behalf of the organizing committee, I hope today's seminar sparks more discussions and helps us further advance Japanese studies in Southeast Asia and beyond. Special thanks as well to our colleagues at the Japan Foundation for their support in strengthening Japanese studies in the region. I also want to thank my colleagues at the Center for Japanese Studies and the Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Indonesia, for making today's session possible. And of course, thank you to all participants. I hope today's session inspires you to keep exploring Japan and its relationship with the world. We look forward to seeing you again in our next session. Thank you. Terima kasih. Arigatou gozaimasu.
ありがとうございました。お疲
Thank
れ様です。
you. Thank you, Himi Sensei, for the thoughtful closing remarks. Before we officially end today's session, I'd like to share a few brief announcements. First, we're excited to announce the next session of the online seminar series, which will take place on September 25th, 2025. Our speakers for next month are Dr. Rohayati Paidi from University Malaya and Dr. Kadek Eva Krishna Adyani from Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. For registration, you can scan the QR code shown on the screen. Secondly, don't miss our upcoming Kutubuku event, a casual book discussion gathering hosted by the Center for Japanese Studies, Universitas Indonesia. It will be held on August 27, 2025 at the library of the Center for Japanese Studies, Universitas Indonesia. This month, we will be discussing the book Pengenalan Budaya dan Pranata Kehidupan Masyarakat Jepang, edited by Astuti, Magister of Education, Dr. Rita Agustina Karnawati, Magister of Education, and Ayu Putri Saruni, Magister of Education. Dr. Rita Agustina Karnawati, one of the authors for the aforementioned book and the head of the Japanese Studies program in Universitas Muhammadiyah, Professor Dr. Hamka, will join us as the book reviewer. Next, we are pleased to announce that we will hold the Haiku Japanese Poetry Workshop titled Haiku o Asobe in Indonesia on September 15th, 2025. In this event, we will have Sato Ayaka, a professional haiku poet from Japan. The event will be held at the Center for Japanese Studies, Universitas Indonesia. Lastly, we warmly invite you to the International Japanese Studies Research Workshop and Symposium 2025, which will take place on October 21st to 22nd, 2025 at the Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Indonesia. Online participation will also be available. We look forward to your attendance. Once again, thank you for joining us today. Please stay connected with us through our social media channels and official website for the latest updates on our programs and activities. We hope to see you again in our next session. 本日のセミナーにご参加いただき、誠にありがとうございました。次回のイベントへのご参加を心からお待ちしております。またお会いしましょう。
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Terima kasih, Karl
you. See
Sensei,
you next
Bu
time.
Meta.
Bye.
Thank you for
See
attending.
you. Kak.
Thank you.
Stay shimas.
Karl, Bu Meta.
Bye, Aldi. Stay tashimasu.
Ada? Halo? Oke. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will stop the Zoom now. Thank you. See you again.